Dear Ignou students, today we deal with BGC 107. It is nothing but British poetry and drama, and it is from the 17th century to 18th century. And here we have an introduction in the first unit about John Webster. And who was John Webster? John Webster was a playwright associated with the Jacobian era, which followed the Elizabethan period. That is the first point you have to remember. John Webster was a playwright associated with the Jacobian era, which followed the next period, that is, which was the next period, the Elizabethan period. Although William Shakespeare dominated the Jacobean era, Webster stood out as a notable dramatist who was the dominant dramatist during the Jacobean era. It was nobody else but William Shakespeare. Although William Shakespeare dominated the era, Webster stood out as a notable dramatist. He was born in the Elizabethan era, and Webster's literary career flourished during King James I's reign. Okay, was born in the Elizabethan era, but his literary career was not during the Elizabethan period. It flourished during King John I's reign. Webster's works reflect a transitional period which marked by a shift from the optimism and vitality of the Renaissance to a more pessimistic and disillusioned tone. What did you say? Webster's works always reflect a kind of a transitional period, and this transitional period was marked by a shift from optimism to pessimism. Yes, that is the speciality of Webster's period. It was a transitional period. From what to what? Yes, from optimism to pessimism. And it was a period of pessimism, we already told, and it was a disillusioned. His writings were a kind of a disillusioned tone. His plays often explored themes of darkness, despair, and the complexities of human nature. He had written a lot of plays, but all of his plays, when we look at his plays, we could explore the different themes, which all of which had a kind of gloomy atmosphere or darkness or despair and the complexities of human nature. In essence, Webster's writing captures the mood of a changing era. In essence, Webster's writing captures the mood of a changing era, offering a unique perspective on the human experience during the time of this kind of a transition period. This transition, it was a period of transition, we already told, and it was a period of uncertainty also. Okay, and Webster's writing captures the real mood of the period, real mood of the pessimism that prevailed during that time. Jacobian drama, which flourished during King James I's reign. Jacobean drama was flourished during King James I's reign. He was born in the Elizabethan period, but his drama flourished during King James I's reign. When was it? It was from 1603 to 1625. Yes, these 22 years was the reigning period of King James. And during this period, Jacobean drama flourished, and it was influenced by so many factors, and these factors include Renaissance humanism, exploration of human nature, emotions, and complexities. Renaissance humanism was the one major factor which influenced Jacobean drama. What was the first and most important element which influenced Jacobean drama? Yes, not only Jacobean drama, but all the writings during King James I's reign. Okay, it was the Renaissance, humanism, exploration of human nature and emotions and complexities. Yes, during the Renaissance, it a major theme evolved out was humanism. What is humanism? Yes, it is the acceptance of man's power. Human being is a worthwhile creature, and his emotions are great, and his life and his complexities in life are things which deserve much study. And that was the theme during, we could see during the humanistic period during Renaissance. And the second factor which influenced Jacobean literature was a Shakespearean legacy. William Shakespeare's works set a high standard for the upcoming dramatists, what they should write or what they should tell to the people through a drama. The method of storytelling through a drama. William Shakespeare's works set a high standard for the dramatic works for the coming dramatists. And that is the second thing which influenced the second factor which influenced the Jacobean era. And the third factor which influenced the Jacobean era was darker themes. Jacobean drama often explored darker themes like ambition, power, corruption, and mortality. Okay, Jacobean drama often explored darker themes also, which were the darker themes that the Jacobean drama explored. It was power, corruption, and mortality of human nature, and also the ambition. And in the midst of this ambition, he does a lot of evil and corrupt practices. Then fourth factor which affected the Jacobean drama was theatre architecture. The advancements in theatre design and staging allowed for more complex productions. Some notable Jacobean dramatists include John Webster, John Ford, Thomas Middleton, Cyril Turner. Here is a simplified version with the key points. What were the characteristics of a Jacobean age? Jacobean age had a lot of characteristics. We already discussed some of them. First thing, decline of noble ideals. The court of James I lost its earlier civilized aspirations and moral corruption becoming prominent during these days. The court of James I lost its earlier civilized, good, noble aspirations. And now everywhere we can see a kind of moral corruption which became a prominent factor during this period. It was one of the major characteristics of the Jacobean era. And the second factor during the Jacobean era was superficiality. The manners at the court were shallow and flashy, lacking in deeper qualities. So superficiality was the second factor that we could see during the which prevailed during the Jacobean period. Manners at the court were not having much originality or sincerity. All the court manners were like a kind of a shallow and flashy, lacking in deeper good qualities and complexity and diversity. The literary scene was marked by a mix of old and new, with the writers from the previous era still producing works. The Jacobean era saw a kind of complexity and diversity in the literary scene. The literature was actually a kind of mix of old and new ideas with the writers from the previous era, and also they're still producing their old works At the same time, new genre was also coming up. The next thing, influence on literature. Legacy of greatest writers. Writers like Shakespeare and Donne influenced the new generation. Tragedies peak and decline. English tragedy reached its peak with Shakespeare but began to decline after him. That is the next thing that happened during the Jacobean era. English tragedy reached at its zenith or peak with Shakespeare, but after Shakespeare it began to decline little by little. And the third thing, Webster's contribution. That is the right area where we have to study. John Webster brought new life to the languishing form of drama. John Webster brought new life to the languishing form of drama. Seneca'S influence on Jacobian drama. That is the next topic that we have to learn. Who was Seneca? And we have to know a little bit. This is the image of Seneca. Now, revenge tragedies. Elizabethan writers were inspired by the Roman philosopher and playwright Seneca. Who was Seneca? He was a Roman philosopher and playwright. And the writers during the Elizabethan period were greatly inspired by this Roman philosopher and playwright Seneca. And he was born in 4th BC, who adapted Greek plays into 5-act dramas. Seneca adapted Greek plays into 5-act dramas. Elizabethan writers were inspired by the Roman philosopher and playwright Seneca, who was born in the 4th century BC, who adopted Greek plays into 5-act dramas, and those were characterized by violence, mutilation, horror magic, the supernatural death, etc., etc. First of all, we would like to look at the revenge theme. Seneca'S plays, with their focus on revenge, greatly influenced Webster and other dramatists. Seneca'S plays, with their focus on revenge, greatly influenced the dramatists like Webster, who lived during the Jacobean era. It affected not only, it influenced not only Webster but also so many other dramatists. And shifts from Greek drama. Seneca's plays, while based on Greek mythology, had a different tone and spirit. He not only he never copied the Greek mythology completely into his drama. He exactly made a different tone and a different spirit when telling his stories, emphasizing human motives like revenge or fate in those incidents. And the third thing, stylistic and moralizing speeches. That was one of the major characteristics of Seneca'S drama. Seneca'S plays featured elaborate speeches describing barbaric actions and reprisals. Now we are going to look at some key points about Seneca'S impact. Seneca provided a model for Elizabethan tragedies like Kid, Marlowe, and Shakespeare. Seneca provided a model for Elizabethan tragedians. Who were the Elizabethan tragedians? Kid, K-Y-T, Marlowe, and Shakespeare. These were the major tragedians who wrote tragic drama during the Elizabethan period. So these famous dramatists during the Elizabethan period really looked Seneca as a model and Seneca's works as a model. And the next influence was Seneca influenced Webster's works, particularly exploring the themes of revenge. Yes, that's all about our first class. This is from the Ignou textbook BEGC 107. It deals with the British poetry and drama, 17th century and 18th century. Thank you.